They come around with a check, which is $4. This man literally, and you can't make this up. Like, he handed me 2 single-dollar bills to split the check for the chicken tender and fries that he ate most of after a tree fell on my car and I was on crutches. And he thought that this date went wonderfully. Like, he was having the time of his life. I was gonna die.
What do you think about modern day dating? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's easier than ever or harder than ever to find love?
Oh, I would think it would be much harder. I just do. I think that when you have that many options, like specifically with online dating, you can constantly swipe. You're never going to be fully satisfied. You don't try and get to know people as much.
It becomes like this speed dating type thing, you know?
Yeah, and it's just like, I also feel like with dating being so different, also with just the way society has moved on, what people are looking for, there's so much diversity in the different kinds of views and people and what they want, where it used to be everyone was kind of looking to get married or something similar to that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of obstacles, I'm finding at least.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of statistics now that say that less and less people want long-term relationships or marriage. It's like gone out the window, you know, or going out the window actively as we speak. And I don't know about you, but there's moments where I'm just like, man, I wish I was like an adult or a young adult in the 50s or 60s, you know.
Oh, 100%.
You know, the traditional way of meeting somebody, falling in love and doing the cool things like roller skating and, you know, it's not always about getting drunk and, you know, I mean, I'm sure people did that back then too, but it's just like, it just seemed like a more innocent time compared to these days. That's not to say that these apps are not good dating tools for meeting people you otherwise would have not met, you know, maybe. But it poses a problem, I think, and that is that when people have this illusion that I have so many options because they do have a bunch of options on this app, you know, it's kind of making people have this this mindset that like, oh, well, you know, I don't like this little trivial thing about this person, so on to the next. I've got another 50 guys lined up, you know, or 50 girls lined up. And I think that's kind of an issue. It's great to have options, but like, you know, especially being adults, right? When you have a lot going on in life, you don't always feel like you have time to devote to finding love, right? So like you kind of develop this mentality where like, I just need to kind of speed through this, you know, and just kind of hope to find something sooner than later. And that can be good, but it could also be really bad. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I was also going to touch on that a little bit because I feel like with the apps, the quantity of dates people are going on are much higher, I think, than they used to be. And with that, the quality has gone down. The respect for people's time has gone down.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. So true.
It's true.
It's 100% true.
But like, okay, so one of my pet peeves too with dating is like, people will show up in men. I date men, but they'll show up in like t-shirts and like khaki shorts or jean shorts or whatever, compared to people used to wear sweaters, blazers,
dress up a little bit,
shirts,
yeah.
Because you're trying to show people that you respect them and their time, even if you don't know if you have a connection. And so that's something that's a red flag to me immediately, as if someone shows up and they look like they just like crawled out of bed or
exactly. Yeah.
You know, 'cause
their hair is completely disheveled, you know, they didn't put, it looks like they put zero effort into presenting themselves. Right. And it's like, here I am. I just, you know, I took my time. And it's not about, you know, being superficial or anything, but it's just like you said, it's a respect thing, you know, showing a little effort, right? Because people are, and the older we get, you know, time is very, very precious, right? Especially if you've been in the dating scene like myself for a long time. And a lot of folks who are over 30 can say the same, that they've been doing the dating thing for so long, and it just gets so old after a while. It's like, man, sometimes you just have to take a break, because it's like, I have other goals and things like that, and I spend all this time dating and it's gotten nowhere, and a lot of disappointment and a lot of heartbreak, and sometimes you just need to take a step back, you know. But it's crazy. I like what you said about people not respecting other people's time. That is so very true. You know, for some people, they don't have a lot of things going on in their life. They just probably go to a 9 to 5, and then they have plenty of time for dating. They don't have actual goals, you know, and that's fine. But, you know, a lot of other folks, the older you get, you might have things you want to accomplish. So the fact that you're making time for someone and then they just kind of don't, you know, appreciate your time and they're very flaky all the time, and you're sitting there trying to make plans and open up time in your schedule for them, and you haven't even met them yet, and they're just kind of like, whatever, I'll just respond whenever I want. Like, to me, that's kind of insulting, you know, because everyone's thinking about themselves. And I feel like in this world that we live in now, it's become a very self-centered type of world, right? You're like,
100%.
It's, you know.
Or like, because I am a culprit of this, or my younger self was. I have a very different view. I think, the views of dating evolve as you get older and the more you do it. But like when I was younger, I used to be a serial dater.
Yeah, me too.
Because these apps, they give you that ability. And even like when you're going out to different parties and things like that, like you meet people naturally and you get asked out, but then having the online stuff as well. Like I remember at one point I had like a certain outfit for each, like whatever number the date was. So I had a first date outfit, a second date outfit, etc. And it wasn't just for ease of planning. It was so that I did not mix up who I was going out with and what I wore the last time, because I went on a date and they were like, oh, you wore this last time. Whoops. Because I was going on so many dates.
Yep. You kind of lose track.
I couldn't, and that's not respecting people's time either. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's like a war zone out there, you know? Yeah, it really is. And for a lot of folks who have been married for a while and now they're just getting out of a divorce or going through a divorce and getting into the dating scene, a lot of them don't know what's coming their way, you know? I know people who got divorced, you know, over 10 years ago and have been actively looking for a spouse since then with no luck still. That's like a decade of your life. And you know what? I've spent many, many years trying to look for love, right? And I had to kind of, adjust and just kind of, okay, I changed my perspective a little bit. I said, okay, I realized that in the process of going out on dates and trying to meet different types of people, there's a good chance most of the people you're going to meet are not going to be a good fit. And that's fine. If it's somebody that I share really good values with and they're respectful and we have like a good thing, but it's just the chemistry's not there or the lifelong goals are not there in order for it to work for marriage, for example, then at least I know I've gained a friend, and that's pretty priceless to me too. But I think as you get older, you're hoping that you finally meet the friend that you want to spend the rest of your life with, you know, unless of course you're not someone who's looking for long term. But, you know, and as you get older, you may get a little pickier maybe with what you want, or it might be the opposite. Like you know, in my 20s, I was kind of really like, this is what I want, does this person check this box, right? And a lot of times we end up with people that are we're checking off the things on the box, but there's other important elements that are missing, and we're just so focused on the paper, right? And so it's really challenging. It's really challenging, and it takes a lot out of you, you know? But,
yeah, it does. But I think too, the more, I don't know, I found that the less I dated, the better quality my dates were. Regardless of whether or not I actually wound up dating those people long term, it was so much easier to get to know them and actually see if the potential was there, and also just to enjoy the dates better when I was seeing less people, because you get to give them that time and that opportunity rather than being half in, half out because you have this other date coming up too and you're trying to compare people. So
and I think that happens a lot.
Absolutely.
Somebody was saying that your attention is divided. So if you can't give your all to this person, how can they really get to know you, and vice versa, you know?
Right.
And that's what happens when you have so many options with these platforms, you know, is you got to know how to use these tools, right? And I think a lot of people don't know how to, or when they're new to it, they're just so excited about the many options and exciting, you know, date opportunities that they only halfway invest. And that's usually not going to do any good for you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the number of friends who I have who are just like really wonderful, beautiful women are just like not finding anybody. And I think a large part of that is due to just this current climate of dating and those tools at our hands. And yeah, like I'm in a position now because I broke up with someone yesterday.
Wow, that's fresh.
Yeah.
So this is all nice and fresh. Well, why don't we dive into that a little bit while it's fresh in your head?
Yeah, it was through an online app. Seemed like a very, very nice guy. We shared a lot of the same goals. There were certain things in the relationship that weren't quite matching my list or what I really wanted, but I was open to, maybe it'll
No one's
work
perfect.
out.
No one's going to check every box, right? That's
I really, really like when guys read books, though, and he just didn't read books, and I was trying really hard to get over it. But
yeah.
But like beyond that, it was just like, you don't know that much about people that you meet online, and you can go on dates for weeks and you think you know somebody, and they really are just a stranger, and it can turn out that they have like 7 arrests, alcohol issues, all sorts of things that they are not straightforward about.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, that's just this guy.
Oh, it was this guy. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did you discover all these things on the first date, or was it kind of gradual? Did he mention a couple things on the first date? Some pre-warning signs there?
So, okay, I have a few questions that I asked that I'm so sad that I have to ask. But one is like, do you have any secret children? Because that is a real thing that happens to people. Happened to my sister. But, and like, yeah, have you been arrested? Things like that, like major
Basics,
deal
yeah.
break. It's so sad we have to ask.
That's true.
But yeah, and so he said, like, he mentioned being in prison at one point.
On the first date?
Yeah, on the first date.
Wow. So the flag waved around a little bit, right?
Yeah, but like,
But you were trying to give him a fair shot,
yeah,
right?
I wanted to know
Hear the story.
why, and then see if I needed to pull out my mace.
But good plan.
Yeah, he said that he had a DUI and his parents wouldn't bail him out. Fair enough. And so
There's probably a reason for that. But anyway, go on.
And so he spent like some time in jail. But
he probably learned some good people skills there.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
How to survive.
I hope he didn't make friends there. But yeah, he wasn't fully transparent, and the more we dated, like prison came up a couple of times, and yeah, just something wasn't right. And so I straight out asked him, and he said, he'd had a couple of prior arrests for.
Couple priors?
Yeah, well, it started out as that, and then it turned out to be 7.
7? Wow.
Yeah, which is not like something you want to hear
Nothing
when
to write
someone's
home
sitting in
about.
your living room.
Yeah. As you're alone with this person.
Yeah, and I'm like, we
No
have
one
no
around.
mutual friends, nothing. And so it's like, I'm fully reliant on that person being honest with me, which is another big flaw. And I think that we need to have a dating app that you have to go through a background check first.
Yeah.
I would be all about that. But yeah, now I'm in the process of like trying to decide, do I want to go back on like dating apps, online dating? Do I want to pay for it in hopes that other people who pay for it are
I'm
more
done
serious?
paying for sure. I haven't paid much, but like every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, okay, maybe I should try it again. And I'm like, I'm not noticing many differences, honestly. Just very few things, and it's really not even worth it.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't know. Like, there's so many options for apps too. I'm like, do I get all of them?
Right. Right.
To better my chances. But then again, you come back to that like insane quantity of people to filter through, which is just not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, and like I remember being on several apps at once in the past, not in any recent times, but, and because I found that some were better than others in some other ways, or I had more matches on one than the other. But one common thing I found in all of these apps, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would go through all this process of pre-screening matches, right? And then you finally get matched with someone, right? Which means that they swiped on you too. So now you're matched in most of the apps anyway. And now you're like, oh, cool. All right, let's give this a shot. And then you send a message, hey, nice to meet you, or I'm glad we got matched, or whatever you want to say. And then radio silence, nothing. Or they'll respond and say, hey, yeah, how's it going? And then you chat for maybe a few minutes that night, right? And then you follow up the next day or 3 days later or whatever, and like nothing. They're just gone. Like, we didn't even have an argument. Like, what the heck happened? I found that happens a lot. And I think the primary reason, because, back in the day, I used to be like, did I say something wrong? Because I'm like, I look back and I'm like, I didn't say anything inappropriate whatsoever, And I'm like, you know what it is? There's just too many things going on. They probably have too many matches. They're talking with multiple people. And now maybe they felt a little stronger connection with someone else. Maybe it was even purely physical. And now they're kind of so focused on that they're just not even giving you the time of day. And that goes to the respect thing, right? At the very least, say, hey, you know what? And I've done this before. I'm like, hey, I know we just matched and that we talked and had a great chat yesterday, but I'm like, there was somebody else I matched with too that I kind of swiped on a while ago, and all of a sudden we just got matched now, and like it's really taking off. So I just want to be respectful of your time, and I think I'm going to kind of pursue this person for now. You know, I'm happy to, you know, it sounds bad, you know, making it sound like you're like second option or something, but like I just want to be respectful of your time and then this person too. So like maybe I'll circle back to you later if it doesn't work out, and if you happen to be available, you want to pick up where we left off, cool. If not, you know, some people take offense to that, and they're like they take it the wrong way. They're like, I'm not your plan B. I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, this is a person that I got matched with first, and like I could just not say anything and kind of ghost you, but I choose not to do that because I want to be respectful, you know? Have you noticed that happened to you before, or like for you specifically, where you're like all of a sudden now you got matched with somebody else that you were probably swiped on a while ago, and you're like, oh shoot, so now you feel more determined to go towards one direction or the other, or do you just try to balance them both?
I mean, I think it depends. So like I will drop off if it's just been a couple of
Messages,
very neutral messages. It is something to think about and consider though, because again, when we talk about the respect for people's time, and it does translate to how you treat people, not just from dating apps, but also your friends and other people. I'm a horrible texter. Like I'm just generally very bad about it, but I don't really like texting very much. So that's another aspect of the apps that I don't really like. But yeah, I mean, I do think that we need to generally revamp how we date a little bit to be more kind and respectful towards people, because they're being treated like they're not even people anymore. You're just...
That's true. Like they're just a number.
Yeah, it's a number or a face.
I mean, and I hate to say this, and I've heard a friend of mine say this, and I'm like, man, he's pretty spot on. It's become a numbers game, and it's sad, you know? I mean, in one way it's sad, in one way it's like, it's understandable, right? Because if you're meeting multiple people, it is going through the process. Even if you're not meeting multiple people at one time, right? Even if you're meeting naturally someone on the street or whatever, you know, once every 6 months you're meeting a new person, right? It's still essentially an odds game or a numbers game. You know, there's a good chance that while that person's really nice, they may not have the same goals as you. You might not have the same, right? Or you might both align with every goal that you have, or the important ones, but maybe the chemistry's weak on the, you know. And I always tell people, I'm like, it's a two-way road. This is why it's so tough, because you can go through 80% failure rate, right? You go through all these people and nothing. And then let's say and this is just throwing out numbers for example, but let's say you get 20% success in a year, where like that 20%, you know, you have a decent conversation, decent connection, you go out, this and that. But even out of that 20%, there's probably only like 5% of those folks that you really feel geared towards, like, man, I'm really connecting with them. But guess what? The rabbit hole goes deeper than that, because now that person might check off all the boxes for you, but do you check off all their boxes? And that's, people forget about that. It's a two-way road. So now your chances go down to 2 or 3% chance, or 1, who knows? Nobody really knows probably, but it's just like, it's no surprise why we can go through years and years and years of dating and not finding someone. But you know what really irks me? I have a friend of mine who was married, got divorced, and then he just took a break. He didn't do any app stuff. He meets this girl. They date for 4 years. I'm like, what the heck? Then that doesn't work out. Then they break up. He doesn't want to meet anybody. Okay, cool. I tell him about it, and he gets on the app, and the first person he meets 2 years later is still living together. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I hate that.
I can't stand that. I can't stand that. And it's just like, dude, you put almost no effort, and you know, and that goes to show you, right, that it's either a numbers thing that he just happened to find that you know, that match right off the bat, or sometimes it's a people settling thing, you know, like they're just settling because they're desperate to just go with the first thing that comes around, and that's unhealthy too. Especially as you get older. I think a lot of people, if they want to have children especially, you know, they might be like more inclined to overlook certain important things and get married. And guess what? I feel like, because I think the divorce rate now is way over 50%. It might be closer to 60% now.
That's so terrifying.
And that wouldn't surprise. Yeah, it is. Because it's like, think about this. Some people literally go through the dating process like we have, for over 10 years. And now maybe even 15 now, right? Or 20. And then finally you meet that one and you're married for 5 years and they cheat on you or it's over. And you're like, dude, do I want to go back to the apps again? I sure don't want to at that point, but it's like, what if you're not meeting anyone else? Like, so you hope for the best. Now, obviously you shouldn't live in fear, but you can't help but have that feeling in the back of your mind, like, man, when I finally meet this person. And how often, right? In the last 10 years, right? We've met several people probably where we thought it was going to go somewhere, and we probably even dated for a while, right?
Yes.
And it still didn't work out. Like, you had a couple of long-term relationships, you know, I had a couple, you may have had a few. And did you live with any of them at any point? No, right? But you were probably there a lot, right? And you guys had a solid relationship, you know?
I was there all the time. Or the one time I was supposed to move in with somebody and then they cheated.
Well, it's a good thing you found that out before, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Me, personally, I want to know the source of the story, right? Because if I understand the source, you know, that might tell me something about the person. And I'm not just writing them off based on one mess up or two, you know? But if there's an addiction, I want to know about it, right? Because I know that if I go into this, there's a good chance that they might still be struggling with this or it'll resurface. But if it's something like, hey, they went through an addiction for a while, they've been clean for a while, and I'm noticing that they're doing everything, you know, let's say alcoholism happens with male and female quite a lot. You know, I've dated a few people who've struggled with that. And, you know, I was tempted to just write them off right off the bat. Or when I was younger, if somebody told me they were divorced, I was like, oh, no. I don't think that way anymore now. I'm definitely not afraid of someone saying they've been divorced. Here's why, from my perspective. And that is because they've gotten that experience of marriage. You know, they went through a lot to get there to begin with, to the marriage, right? So they understand, in most cases, relationships and the devotion required to make a relationship work. So yes, I want to know the reason for the divorce. That is important. But not everyone who's been divorced is a broken person. And, you know, I've known people who their second marriage is like stellar, right? Yeah. And even if that person was the one at fault for the reason that the divorce happened, you know, sometimes that person will learn from that and you know, maybe even in their dating process, they get judged a lot for being divorced or whatnot, and it kind of opens their eyes like, man, I got to make some changes, and they make those changes. So is it fair to just write somebody off? No. You know, I've been written off for certain things too myself, and I'm like, dude, you don't even know me. Like, I'm not that same person anymore, you know? Like, I now more so don't want to do that or be around that because I've learned the hard way, whether it was on purpose or not, or, you know, it was just dealt a bad hand to me, you know. But I think it's great that you want to give that person a shot and, you know, and then proceed with caution, you know, and asking the right questions, you know, as opposed to just writing them off.
Well, yeah, I mean, the things that I've been written off for are so laughable, some of them. They're hilarious. I got ghosted by this guy one time. We had like a really good date, and I felt really good about it. He was very excited about it, so he said. And then we were talking on the phone after the fact, and like we were talking about music and silly stuff, and I said that I really enjoyed this Lizzo song that came out, and he was like, no, that's a deal breaker. Like, I can't. She's such a terrible person. And I was like, dude, like, aggressive. Yeah. Chill out. He ghosted me, never talked to me ever again.
Wow. Yeah.
This is something that I've found more recently. Okay, this, I think, has evolved more and more over time where, like, I think people are really afraid of, like, vulnerability. And I have a couple of things to say on this. But, yeah, okay, so I found that, because I love baking, I love cooking, and, you know, if somebody pays for a dinner for me, like, I want to do something in return. It might not be the exact same exchange because it's not meant to be that.
And it's not about that, right? Exactly.
But what I've found is, like, if I bake something for a guy, they are either going to completely love it or it's going to freak them out. Because I've had people run for that. Like, I was dating this guy for 2 months. Really nice guy. And yeah, he like insisted on paying for everything. So you're talking about like 2 months worth of that. And I baked him things here and there, and he liked it. But, you know, we were at a point, and it was around Thanksgiving, and he was a cop. And so he was so excited to have Thanksgiving off because it was his favorite holiday, and that's rare for them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He was so excited, and it was so endearing. And it got taken away because
you had to go to work, you mean?
yeah, he
Okay.
wound up having to like actually work Thanksgiving. He was so sad, and it
Yeah.
made me so sad. And I
Yeah.
was like, you're so nice. You've done so much stuff for
Yeah.
me.
Did you
So-
prepare something for him for Thanksgiving and then he
Oh,
couldn't make
yeah.
it? Was that what it was?
No. So, yeah, he knew he wasn't going to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving with his family. And I felt so bad. And I was like, he's so sweet. He's been so good to me. I'm going to make him Thanksgiving dinner.
That's so nice.
It was such a mistake. I spent like over $200. I took a day off of work to like bake and cook ahead of time. I made 2 different pies.
This is before you knew that he wasn't going to make it, right?
No. So this was not actual Thanksgiving. I did
Okay.
like a makeup
Oh,
Thanksgiving
gotcha.
for him.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
Like, no, he like it totally freaked him out.
What?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Like I made custom cocktails and I put on an old Macy's Thanksgiving parade. I got a new board game because we like to do that. And tried to make it like this whole makeup Thanksgiving for him. Totally freaked him out.
Wow.
And then he suddenly like, he didn't ghost out.
Faded out slowly.
But yeah. The good old fade out. And so I think that there's that. And another thing I've seen, I don't know if you've seen this, but like people don't want to talk about similar values or things on a first date. I found they have this whole idea of like, let's just have fun and get to know each other. And it's like, well, that's all really good. But like, I don't want to go on dates with you for a month. And then
to
find
realize we
out
don't have
that,
the core
like,
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so frustrating.
I had that happen to me many times. I know what you mean. It's like, or, I had certain things I wanted to mention, or sometimes you want to talk about child rearing, like whether you want to have kids or not on a first date. And I remember like having those conversations on a first date years back, right? And I kind of shied away from it because I saw some people loved it, but most were just like, whoa, it's only a first date. I'm like, no, I know. I don't need to know all these things from you now. I don't need any kind of commitment from you now. I'm just letting you know this is an important factor to me. Is it important to you? I think these are important questions to ask if you're looking for something long-term, right? Especially, or at least down the road long-term. But I think a lot of people who are not in the right mindset or they're not looking for long-term, they think they might be, but they're not, it will freak them out naturally, I think the fact that you would do something so nice for somebody like you did for him and him freaking out is just so sad. It actually brought me back when I was in my earlier 20s. I was always like a romantic at heart from when I was in elementary school. I wore my heart in my sleeve. I still kind of do, but I'm always more guarded now just because I've been dealt some bad cards like anybody else. So just to protect myself, but I still don't want to hold back because then I'm not really being myself,
Yeah, I had right before my last boyfriend. I think part of the appeal of him was he was able to talk about these things on a first date, be very straightforward, and he was like, yeah, like that's a lot because I'm pretty open. Like I want to get married, I want to have kids. Not immediately. But like that's what I'm looking for. If you're not looking for this is like that's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
I'm 31.
Yeah.
Move it along.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that's intense, but like it's good. And like I want that too, and it's good to have the same goals. It gives me something to work towards. I know what the boundaries are in this relationship. Like I'm not gonna waste your time. Whereas the guy that I went out before him, we talked on the phone for a month because he lived a little further away. We'd gone on 2 dates. It was the second date. I brought the same thing up. And he talked about having, wanting a family, whatever. But I talked about it more specifically of this is what I'm looking for. And he told me that it was way too intense. And that was probably why I was still single is because you needed to wait a little bit and get to know each other and just have fun. And
what was too intense? Talking about the things that matter to you?
That I wanted, yes.
Yeah. And he said this after what? The first date or
second? We were on
date?
a second
so
date.
So you even reserved a lot of it for the second date.
Yeah.
And he still kind of shoved that in your face.
We talked about family values and different things before, but specifically when it came down to what we were looking for. He was talking about that. But then at the same time, he told me that was too intense. At the same time, he was asking me about my job and how much I made, how much I had in savings. And then judged me. Yeah. He judged me because I spent $7,000 saving my puppy.
Right.
Who was really sick. And it just happened to be the day before her insurance kicked in and she could have died. So I spent $7,000 and that had just happened. So I was talking about that. And how that affected my savings. And he was like, that's a terrible decision.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you
that's
should
a
have
terrible
let
thing
your
to say.
dog go. And I was like,
What?
dude, you're in law school. You have like thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt and 5 roommates. Like, I've got my life together.
I think while dating apps can be a good tool, again, like I said earlier, to meet someone you probably otherwise would not have met because they live in a different city or state, whatever, and maybe you're not in the bar scene, and maybe you don't want to meet somebody in the bar scene. I know I don't.
Yeah, I don't.
That's not to say you can't happen to bump into someone who's a great person like you, but I just don't want to meet somebody in the bar. I don't want to go to the bar for that reason, and I don't even want to have alcohol on the first date, to be honest with you. That's me. I would prefer like a simple thing like a coffee date or let's go for a walk or something. And you know what? I've been judged for that too. Not by everyone. I've actually been thanked by some women like, this is so refreshing. Every guy I meet wants to go get drinks, like, or invites me to their house to watch stuff with them, like was what do they really want.
Hard pass.
And I hear that happens actually a lot,
Yeah,
so
forget that.
and I'm like, okay, so you turn down the guy who genuinely wants to respect you and go have a coffee with you because you thought that was too whatever. But then you go and hang out with the guy who invites you over to his house or like has nothing valuable to share with you on a first date. Like, I would check yourself on that. I don't know.
Okay, I have one opinion about that though.
Go ahead, let's hear it.
So I hate those dates.
Why?
The coffee and walk dates, not because of the content of the date. But the nice thing about drinks or dinner is that there is like a start and an end time that is foreseeable. And so you don't feel like stuck in this situation or have to awkwardly like know that this date is going nowhere, but you're like 2 miles away from your car and you have to double all the way back. Or like, I like to do something with my hands. Like, I like to have my hands busy. Like, I need to
put your coffee mug there and then just, it's the same thing, whether it's alcohol in that mug or not,
Yeah, no, I know. But
Yeah.
like, I need to have something to do with my hands. And I don't know, some of the more awkward dates I've been on have been like, ooh.
I think you just had the wrong guys on those dates.
Okay, no, there was this man. He was so sweet. It was not that long ago. I feel so bad, like, because I was just not interested. But he was so sweet. Oh my gosh. But he knew I liked puzzles. Met him online. He knew I liked puzzles.
I see where this is going, I think.
He brought me a puzzle, okay, and like
on a first date?
Yeah, and like brought treats for my puppy.
That's
and
sweet.
Like it was really sweet. Like, he met me for a walk so that I could bring my puppy. But like, we were gonna get coffee and go for a walk, and he was so awkward. And like, he got there before.
But that has nothing to do with the coffee date. That specifically has to do with him being awkward. That's what I'm saying. It gave you this illusion because you probably met a lot of awkward guys at coffee shops. So I could see how that would make it, because I've had some really great times where it was more fun than a bar, which is shocking because there's no buzz going on, no music going on in the background. It's very dry, if you want to call it that, But I've had great and I've had bad coffee dates. I've had someone talk about how she chases kids around the house with a knife. I'm not even kidding you, on a coffee date. Yeah. This was like 6-7 years ago.
Did you
maybe.
report her?
No, but
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was a coffee date.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, but just to show you, because I had some really like magical coffee dates, and then I had some just plain Jane, dates, and then I had 1 or 2 or 3 situations where like it was not there, and so it gave the illusion that the whole thing was just not worth it or whatever. But yeah, no, she said like, oh, I babysit these kids, and when those little shits get on my nerves, I just grab a knife and I chase them around the house. I'm like, wait, so these are not even your kids? She's like, no. I'm like, why would you do that? Yeah. So anyway, nonetheless, so she played it off like it's nothing, right? I'm like, okay, cool, whatever.
Red
then
flag.
Huge red flag, right? So, and then there's some other things that gave me some indication that she has some anger issues, like severe anger issues. And everyone can get angry about things, but like actual problematic anger. And there's also good anger, which I think is like righteous anger, like, and that should be controlled too, and it's all about balance, right? But like, when someone does something to somebody and you're rightfully angered, like, that's not right. You don't treat people that way. That's like a good anger, right? As opposed to just having a short fuse for everything and then you just get angry with the wrong. You're like, dude, be patient. Kids require patience, whatever. You don't chase them with a knife. But nonetheless, I could have easily ghosted that person, right? Because anyone would have been like, "Oh, screw this, I'm out," right?
No, you don't want to get murdered in your sleep,
right? But when I got home, because I'm always respectful this way, I say, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for coming out. It was nice to meet you, and I just want to be transparent with you. I don't know that I'm interested in seeing you again, but I think you're a wonderful person in general, a little BS there, but I was trying to be a gentleman, like And overall, she seemed nice. So that wasn't truly a lie, but there's issues there, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? She flipped. She flipped because I was nice and I didn't ghost her. Whereas I've had other people say, you know what? You're the first person to actually like reach out afterwards who was not interested in me to say, thank you for your time. You know, like she's like, that's so mature. Thank you. Like it sucks to hear, she would say, you know, and I agree because I've been in the same situation where someone was nice enough to get back to me and say, hey, you know what? It's a bummer, but I get it. This is the process, you know, like it is what it is, right? And I thank you for taking a second to respond or to actively send me a message to say, hey, thank you for your time. I think it's a mature thing to do. It goes back to the whole thing that you say about respect, you know? Now, if you were in danger and you try to escape and this and that, like you probably don't have to go through those lengths, just block the person and get the heck out, you know? But like, you know, like there was no immediate danger to me. So like, and I don't want to ghost her and have her have more anger towards those kids, you know? So, yeah, but it still backfired. It still backfired. She still got angry. And I'm like, see, that further proves that she has crazy anger issues because someone did something nice, which wasn't what she wanted, and she flipped.
I've had that happen.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. People are nuts. But, okay, so one pro to your coffee and walk dates is like something I've also had happen that, you know, honestly, I'd never had happen prior to a couple of years ago. I think with COVID, people got way more comfortable with coming into each other's personal spaces and expecting to do so. Because what I've noticed a huge rise in recently, which it just makes me feel terrible, is like, we'll go on dates, and I do appreciate people putting in effort to come by me, because I'm not in the city. So, you know, people have to come out a ways.
Especially if you're not even that maybe thrilled about the person to begin with. You're like, there's potential, but like, am I going to really invest that much time going all the way out there? And I'm not even that crazy, you know. I
appreciate the gesture for sure, but with that has come this price of men either drinking a little bit too much on a date and not being able to quite drive home yet, which puts you in a super awkward position. Or I've actually had guys who have pre-packed bags, brought them into my house, and just assumed that they were staying over.
Wow.
That's happened multiple times recently.
Where do you meet these guys?
The dating apps.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's insane.
That is on the rise. I don't know if other people, I don't know. Weird things happen to me. So I don't know if this just happens to me or it happens to other people. But that's definitely something that I've noticed a trend of.
Before I forget, you said something earlier when I first brought up the coffee thing, and you're like, nope, you know, I'd rather do the dinner and the drinks because, you know, knowing the start and stop time, whatever. It's funny, just for an argument's sake, like I felt the exact opposite, and I've talked to a lot of other women who felt the same. Like, whereas when you go to dinner, you're almost like you have to be there longer. So if it really sucks because you already ordered the food, now you're waiting for the food to come out, you know, you don't want to just pack up your food and say, oh, thanks, it's a good time before you even take a bite, right? Whereas a coffee, you can drink it faster if you need to and be done in 25 minutes if you really need to and say, hey, that was a great coffee, thanks, you know, like, you know, I'll get back to you or whatever you want to say, you know?
I've had like so many weird things. And yeah, I mean, part of it is luck. But like, I wondered the same thing because I sometimes have weirder experiences than my friends. Like, my favorite worst date, I don't even know if it's my worst date, but it's up there. This chicken tender guy. I told you about chicken tender guy.
Do enlighten us.
So at the time, because again, I have really bad luck and I just know that about myself. I was on crutches.
Because you have bad luck. Just kidding.
No, that was from alcohol. But I was much younger.
More or less.
Yeah, I was much younger, and it was Halloween. Again, I love Halloween. Had too much fun. Wound up on crutches, and a tree fell on my car.
Oh.
Like, I was trying to leave work to go to this date early. And
see how devoted you are? Every time you had a car situation, you still try to show up.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's why I said I'm used to it. Like, I just have weird things happen. But yeah, a tree fell on my car, and I was on crutches. It was like a whole thing. I duct taped my windshield, and I was like determined to get to this date.
Wow.
We were gonna do dinner and a comedy show.
Oh, nice.
And so it sounded like a fun time.
And it
But,
sounded
like,
like you needed it too.
Yeah, but like it was hard to get down there. Parking was an issue in the area. So I was like, all right, I'm going to drive my car part of the way and then I'm going to Uber the rest of the way. And so I did that. I went through all this effort and I was only 15 minutes late. Like that's pretty
That's
good.
reasonable.
Yeah.
15 and you probably texted him, let him know.
I texted him a picture of me on the crutches in front of the car with my tree on it. I still have this photo. My family loves it. It's framed. But yeah, so I arrived to this date only 15 minutes late, and it was like everything was in the same venue. So we were going to get dinner there and then go into the like auditorium room, whatever they call that, theater. I don't know what they call comedy showrooms.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, so we were going to do that, and he was like, I think it's like too late for dinner.
And you're probably hungry at this point.
I was starving. Do you know how hungry crutches make you? You're like ravenous because it's so much extra work.
Yeah.
Great for your abs. But yeah, so we go in there and I was like, shoot, like I'm so hungry. We still had 45 minutes before the show. And so like we went and we sat in this room, like empty room, and just like talked. And I realized that the most interesting thing about him was that his dad was a potato farmer. So like this is not going well. Like it's not going well, and I'm starving.
I'm thinking endless potatoes. Right?
And I'm stressed out. No, I did not care. But he did supply for Wendy's, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're probably doing pretty well then.
But yeah, so then like the show's going to start, and they bring around, like it turns out that you can order food in there. So it's like perfect, great. So it's like I'm starving, I want to order food. And he was like, I'm not that hungry. Like, do you want to split something? I wasn't.
You're like, this keeps going downhill.
I know. Well, so he decided that we should get the chicken tenders and fries, which was like the kids.
Was it part of the plan to eat? Did you guys talk about that?
Yeah, we were going to do dinner
right?
before.
Okay, so
yeah. And then he
said
said there wasn't time because I was 15 minutes late.
Right.
So, yeah, so we ordered chicken tenders and fries from the kids' menu. And he proceeds to eat 3 of the 4 chicken tenders.
Get out of here.
Says, girls like fries, right? As he's taking like the 3rd one. I'm starving. And like he didn't want alcohol, which fine, whatever.
Sounds something like he wanted to save as much money as possible is what I'm gathering.
Well, so then I found out, yeah, well, he was also a student, like taking classes, like stand-up classes there at this venue. So like the tickets were free. So after the show, they come around with a check, which is $4. This man literally, and you can't make this up. Like he handed me 2 single-dollar bills to split the check for the chicken tender and fries that he ate most of after a tree fell on my car and I was on crutches. And he thought that this date went wonderfully. Like he was having the time of his life. I was going to die.
I could almost cry. That's so sad. That's insane.
So bad. It was so bad.
Wow.
And then like he wanted to go get dessert somewhere after, and I was like,
he was probably going to pin that on you.
That was one of the only times I've like left early. I was like, oh,
had you gone to that dessert, he probably would have had you pay for it. Probably.
I don't know, but he continued to ask me out for like another year, and I was like, dude, you're not getting it.
Okay, but let's be honest. Did you tell him why you weren't interested?
No, I didn't.
You didn't have it in your heart, right?
I wasn't like, you're a cheap ass.
Right. I mean, you could have said it nicely. Hey, here's the thing. I'm not that interested. I'm like, this is, if you remember, this is how the date went. It just seemed a little inconsiderate. Maybe you were on a budget. I don't know. But like, it kind of.
If you can't afford
a date, don't go on a date.
$4 check.
Yeah, that's a problem.
There's bigger issues there, and you probably shouldn't be dating.
Yeah. That's true.
But yeah, no, I just said I didn't feel a connection, which was true. Because again, the most interesting thing was his dad's job. So,
one other thing I found that's very disappointing with dating is no matter how upfront you are about what you're looking for, and I'm thinking back years now, where you might be like, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I feel like a lot of people put that in a profile, right? And, just casual dating or whatever. Let's say if that's the case. Then you go on a date and everything, and this person gets really attached and wants this, long-term thing. And you're like, dude, I was completely transparent up front, and now you're getting bent out of shape. Like, did you not read the profile? And we even talked about it on the first date. Has that ever happened to you where you're like, you were just upfront about something and then they still...
Oh, yeah. This guy, I saw him for a full year. Okay, we were never official. Dated him for a whole year. I was also like seeing other people because we weren't exclusive and I was looking for something serious. We talked about that like the first time we spoke. He was like, oh yeah, no, like I'm looking, like I want to get married, whatever. Liar. So after a few months, he was like, yeah, I just don't know if like now is the right time, but like I want to keep talking to you. I want to keep going out. I'm like, all right, I'll play the long game. And so I was dumb and like I didn't
catch on.
No, like I caught on a little bit, but like I was like, I'm gonna just like, that's fine. Like I enjoy his company. Maybe he'll come around.
Yeah.
Never do that. But yeah, we dated for like a full year. And when it was gonna be a year, I met him for dinner. And yeah, it was like, so just so you know, like this has been really great, but this is our last dinner. Like, because I feel like I'm wasting time. Like, not like...
He said that?
No, I said that.
Oh, okay.
Because I was like, I really enjoy...
That's transparency at its finest.
Yeah, I was like, I really enjoy our time together, but like, this is preventing me from using this time to actually look for what I'm looking for long term.
Right.
This man got so upset. Like, so upset.
Like, put on a show in front of everybody upset?
Like,
or
he
not
cried.
that?
He cried. And he was really, really upset. And like, then the whole flip, like the script flipped. And he was like, let's be in a committed relationship. I'll be there. I'll change religions. I didn't even ask him to change religions. Like, and trying to do all these things. And then was super frustrated with me because he was like, well, I'm giving you what you want. Like, why aren't you taking this? And yeah, I was just like, no, like that's not how it works. Like you ruined it. You took too long. You dragged your feet. You wanted to see what else was better out there. You didn't want to commit.
And when someone flips the script like that and says, okay, I'll change this, I'll change that, even if they believe it themselves, that is never going to have lasting positive impact. Because if you guys end up together, then that person can start resenting you and be like, yeah, I didn't want this, you know, I'm not happy, I'm getting out of this. And now you end up in a divorce or a breakup after years of investing time in that. So it's good that you caught on that at some point and made a decision to just say, hey, this is the last draw, you know. I think that's commendable. The thing is, too, when you said, like, he kind of flipped the script, initially it was like, yeah, I'm looking for long-term, too. And then I was like, no, I'm not. I think an issue with apps, too, is, like, if you are being honest, it's kind of a double-edged sword. But you're being honest about what you're looking for, right? Now you're giving this person all this information. If he's one of those people that's manipulative, and a woman can be this way, too, I'm sure, they can say, oh, okay, so he wants long-term. Okay, so I know the only way I'm going to end up being physical with this person at some point is that I, you know, check off all the boxes for them initially, right? So they could have just looked at your profile where you said, I'm looking for something meaningful long-term, and say, okay, cool, I'm going to go with that. And say, yeah, oh, me too. And all of a sudden now you have the relating, and now you're excited and this and that. And you get, it's almost like a bait and switch, you know? And I think that happens a lot.
Oh,
and
it does, yeah.
Either it's on purpose, and I think that's most of the cases, or that person is like, well, I like how that person looks so much, so I think I could maybe make some changes, you know. Okay, yeah, I'll go with it. It's probably not going to work out anyway, so let's just go with it, have fun. And now you get drawn in, and you invest your time, and as you get older and older, you know, you're losing valuable hours and weeks and months and years with someone who's not even truly on the same page, you know, or even if they try to be, their true self is going to come out and surface anyway. And they're like, look, I'm not really wanting to get married. I really don't want to have kids, or I really don't, you know. So I had somebody like that, you know, that was like, oh, I'm willing to change this and this. And I really believed that she believed that.
Yeah.
But I said, look, I'm not going to say you're lying. I do believe that you believe that. But you're going to end up resenting me down the road. I can guarantee it. And you're going to feel unhappy in the marriage, and you're going to want out. And then I'm older than you, so now I have to start over again at an even older age. You'll be fine because you're 10 years younger, you know, and still in a good place to find somebody, and you're a woman, and you could definitely find a bunch of dudes, you know. Whether they're good or not is a different story, but, you know, it's a double-edged sword. You want to be upfront about everything on the app, and you want to say, this is what I want, this is what I'm looking for, you know, but someone could use that against you. And it's just like, it goes back to the whole just taking chances, and you need to know where you draw the line. You got to know how to pick up on the signals and say, okay, I caught on that I'm not going to move forward with this, and just be honest about what you can, and if you don't have the courage to say exactly what is the reason that you want to end things, then you say, it's just not there for me, or, something doesn't feel right, whatever you want to say. I think something is better than nothing than just ghosting someone. Let me ask you this, based on your experiences and your knowledge, if you had a friend come to you who's getting out of a marriage and for the first time dating different people, first time, they probably married this person when they were really young, they have zero experience dating in today's day and age, what would be your advice to that friend or a coworker who's like, hey, how do I navigate through this? What would you warn them about, and how would you tell them to kind of navigate?
I think one is obviously like trust your gut feeling when you meet somebody. If you have an initial thought that like, oh, this isn't going to work, it's not. Like, even if the date gets better and you have more in common than you thought, like, you have to follow your gut. Dating apps, I would say don't use them as like a sole source. You need to go out. You need to do the activities that you enjoy, and like preferably you meet someone that way. You can tell a lot more about how you feel about a person, what their vibes are by meeting them in person first.
Yeah.
And just to take it one person at a time rather than going on a bunch of dates, because I would think a lot of people get like date happy and they really want to make something work. They don't want to waste time.
Especially when you went through the trenches so many times, you just want to.
Yeah, you want to figure it out, and you want to figure it out quickly, but like I don't think that that's the best way to go ahead. I think you need to really, really take time to evaluate each date and each person you go out with, and what you like and what you don't like about that person or that experience. And to just like slow down and go on one date at a time, get to know one person at a time, and not to get caught up in like the scrolling. Yeah.
And you are in your early 30s now. And so you've been in the dating scene for a while now. And so you definitely know what you're talking about, but now that it's been a while that you've been doing the dating thing, right? Would you say you've reached a point where it's pretty exhausting?
Yeah, and I think that sometimes I have like a renewed vigor, and it's not even like I enjoy dates because I enjoy getting to know people, and I've made some really good friends that way. But yeah, it is kind of, you reach a certain point, and I think it's you slow down as you get older. When you're in your early 20s, you want to go here and here and do this and this and this. And when you get older, you're just more like, okay, like I've been doing this for a long time. It's getting old. I'm ready to move on to that next thing. Yeah. And it's so frustrating.
Well, a while ago, I remember I got to the point where I was going on a date almost every day of the week, right? Just because it was one of those rare months where you just had a lot of matches. So you kind of want to weed through the bad apples real quick. And, but there was months where I had maybe, 3 different dates in 1 week. And that felt like it was kind of impeding too much in my time. It was just, I have so much going on, and now I'm trying to find time for these people. And most of the time just ending up disappointed. That I remember one point where I had a bunch of matches in 1 week, and we had some good clicks, where I had 3 dates in 1 day.
Yeah.
And that's not because I was trying to be weird or whatever, but I was just kind of like, you know what? Instead of letting I don't want to say wasting, but taking up 3 days of my 7 days in that week, why not just plan it, because it worked out that way, to have all 3 in 1 day. That way I'm only taking 1 day out of that week, even though it's going to be exhausting. And it was exhausting because I think I met somebody earlier in the day for like lunch, and then hours later someone for coffee, and then hours after that, or just an hour and a half after that, the next person also for coffee, because I figured I would need coffee by that point. When that wedding day comes, if it ever comes, and you're sitting at the altar, or for me, standing at the altar, and she's
you're sitting, you're real old. It's taken a long time.
At this point, that's possible. It's like the way it's looking, man. I think that's going to happen, So I'm sitting, or I'm in a cane, holding onto my cane, as she walks down the aisle. I'm going to probably be in mega tears, because I'm going to be like, man, it's finally here. Like, I appreciate this person so much more that I finally have found that love. I can share my heart with someone now. We can have those simple moments in life together and show each other love and stuff. It's just, at this point, it seems like a pipe dream, but I'm trying to keep a positive outlook, because I do think it's a numbers thing, it's a timing thing, it's a luck thing, it's a many things, right? Who knows what the actual factor is? But like, I also know I can't sit around and wait for someone to fall out of the sky in my lap. Could it happen where you run into someone, you crash into them at a red light, and then now you get married? Sure, it can happen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go seek a car accident, you know? So it's just like
maybe that's why someone crashed into me earlier. They're just
maybe
hoping for
maybe, except they dipped, right?
And then they looked and saw me, and they're like, "I'm leaving."
Exactly. They were waiting around the corner to see if they're gonna like own up to it or not.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna toast to finding love, hopefully sooner than later, and no more crazies for both of us. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yes.